Hey, PreSales Collective, it's your host, James Kaikis, and today I'm going to be joined by Dini Mehta, former Chief Revenue Officer at Lattice and part-time operator at Operators Collective. The topic of today's episode is the CROs Perspective, unlocking the solutions consultant. You've asked for it, so we delivered. Today, we bring a true sales executive on the podcast to talk about how they define the role, why they've invested in the role, and how and why the role is changing as buying and selling changes. So today, Dini and I are going to have an unscripted conversation around the role of solutions. Whether you're aspiring to break in the profession, you're in the profession as an IC or a leader, or even an executive, it's really interesting to hear her perspective. And what we also talk about at the end of the podcast is how solutions leaders can help drive value and trust to be a true co-pilot of the CRO. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but we talk a lot about how do we as solutions executives become co-pilots to our CROs. You're just going to have to listen to find out. Enjoy.
Hi there. My name is Yuji Higashi, co-founder of PreSales Collective, and I have big news to share with you if you're a pre-sales leader or an individual contributor early in your career. We recently launched 2 training and enablement programs aimed at helping you take your career to the next level. Both programs were created by pre-sales leaders with input from dozens of SC veterans across our community. Now, we'll be running cohorts each month, so if you're interested in participating, visit us at presalescollective.com/enablement to submit an inquiry, and we'll send you details about each program, including this curriculum and schedule. We look forward to working with you on growing your career and being part of your career journey. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon.
Dini, welcome to the PreSales Podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Stoked to be here.
It is a pleasure and an honor to have you. You know, we've been wanting to get you involved in the PreSales Collective for some time. And so I'm glad you're joining us on the podcast to talk about such an important topic of a CRO's perspective on the solutions consulting role. But really, before we get to that, Dini, I want to talk about you and where you are in your stage of your career, because after 4.5 years and successful years at Lattice, you're on an operating timeout. Is that right?
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about this timeout.
So I've been on the timeout for officially 4 weeks, and it has been so good for my soul. This is the first time I'm taking a break in 19 years. I moved to the US for school. I was born and raised in India, and so I moved here for college, and I haven't taken a break for all my time here. And so I'm learning how to slow down. You know, the first few weeks were definitely bizarre and weird. Like I'd wake up in the middle of the night thinking about revenue and pacing and how we're doing. And once a week I think about it and I was like, wait, I don't have revenue to track, but it's been awesome. I'm doing everything and nothing at the same time.
I'm so happy that you shared that. I mean, 19 years without a break. And there's so many folks who just go job to job and sometimes take a week or a couple of weeks between jobs. And so you're actually taking a couple months, and especially someone at your role and the positions that you've held in the past, to be able to take a step back before you take your next role. It's really inspiring. So really appreciate that you're sharing that with us and joining us on your timeout.
Totally. No, this is fun. Fun to jump on the one video call of the week versus my 18 video calls of the day back in the day. So no, I'm stoked. Thank you for having me.
For our listeners, can you share your career journey? What got you to where you are today?
So as I said, I grew up in India, born and raised there. I moved here for school at 18 years old on my own. My parents are still back there, so I'm a proud immigrant. And my parents' hope when they sent me to the US was that I would become a doctor or an engineer, but too bad for them. That wasn't in the cards for me. But luckily, I found my way to Silicon Valley and I fell into tech accidentally. I worked at this company with a bunch of brilliant second-time entrepreneurs. I was a sort of generalist on the business side. So I got to do every role in go-to-market. That was my first job. And I fought sales for the first few years of my career. So I did everything from account management and business development and customer success, because in my brain, I had this negative impression of what it meant to be in sales. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to continue doing every other role. But then as I was supporting the revenue org, I realized that being in sales, I could really accelerate my career and income. because it's objective. You get to earn your autonomy, your pace of growth, and it's all through performance. It was like a true meritocracy, which is something I've always loved in sales. And so decided to take a shot at a quota carrying role at a company called Quantcast. It was so much fun. I learned a ton of how do you bring a new product into a growing new market. So I did that for 2.5 years. And at the end of that, I knew that I loved sales, but I wanted to see if I could do it on my own because I'd done it as part of this team at Quantcast, the early team that helped scale. I was managing a team there. But I was like, if I had a clean slate, could I build this? Working with a founding team. And so that took me to Drawbridge, where I spent about 5.5 years, eventually ran global sales there. I did a lot of growing up as a leader there, learned about the 0 to 1 phase is so different. At the end, we sold a business to LinkedIn, 100 million plus. I had so much fun doing that. And so at that point, I was thinking about what do I want to do next? I'd sold to marketers, done enterprise sales. And so I wanted to do something different. I'm one of those people who's uncomfortable if I'm too comfortable. So I was like at that place where, I'd sold to marketers, worked with brands, and I was becoming one of those jaded leaders that would say things like that can't be done. And I was like, okay, time to go. And so I was looking for a business that was, more mission aligned and very much sort of aligned with my core values. And so that's where enter Lattice. It was my first adventure in HR tech. First time doing high velocity sales. And it was such a fun experience. I joined when we were single digit revenue and, 4.5 years later, we grew that 33x and, the team scaled by 20x. It was just so much fun in sort of building a sustainable revenue engine from the ground up. So yeah, and now I'm doing nothing.
That is an incredible journey and really appreciate you sharing that, Dini. I mean, the success you've had at Lattice is just incredible. And as someone who runs the PreSales Collective, we have a number of pre-sales professionals that work at Lattice and just sing your praises as a CRO and sing their experience. And so that's why, really wanted to bring you on the podcast to talk about your perspective around the solutions consulting role. Because without buy-in from the top revenue leaders, what does this role actually become? I'm excited to have this conversation. And I know the listeners are excited to hear your perspective.
I'm stoked. I'm excited to talk about it. I think it's such a critical part of the go-to-market. So I'm stoked that you're running this podcast and excited to be on here.
Let's get right into it. What is your definition of solutions consulting?
It depends on the business. So in my mind, SC is this liaison between your engineering, product, and design orgs and your go-to-market orgs. That's the internal value that an SC team can play. Externally, it's the co-pilot to your sales team. They can be the more technical, product-oriented part of your sales. They're a key partner to the AE in the sales process. And I think, again, it depends on your business and depends on your reasons to invest in this org. But solutions consulting there's so much value in the role itself, especially when you're scaling. And so again, it depends on your strategic goals, but in my mind, they're the sort of liaison between your technical side of the house and the go-to-market, and really be that co-partner to your AE, working with technical buyers, or even just solutions, helping you frame out the right solutions for your buyers.
I love that perspective. And I'm very happy to hear you talk about co-pilot. I think a lot of times the best organizations look at this role as a co-pilot versus a support role and a resource role. And I think it just unlocks the power of it. And you used a key word in your definition that I'd love to explore is the word invest, right? You talked about investing in this role. So from your perspective, especially from your previous role at Lattice, why did you look at this role as an investment?
There's a funny personal story, not at Lattice, but prior to that, when I was an AE, I got promoted into the enterprise role. And I remember my manager said, now you're going to work with an SE that's going to help you with deals. And in my mind, I was like, why? I know how to run demos. I know how to run these cycles. I was the top performer in this other team. Why do I have to work with someone else? And I was skeptical as an AE because I was like, I'm going to lose control and I'm going to have to spend time now partnering with my SE and developing a game plan. And I was wrong because I saw the action. Once I embraced the value of what an SE can bring, they're your true partner where they can come in and, there's so many folks involved in the buying cycle. The whole buyer journey has evolved over the last few years. And so I became a believer once I saw it in action as an AE. And I share that story because I feel like a lot of AEs can go through that journey. And on the flip side, SEs have to earn the trust as they step into, with new AEs, build that relationship. I knew at Lattice that we had to invest in this role when we said we want to move up market. And so for the first 2 years, when I joined Lattice, we were mostly an SMB business, 100% inbound. And one of the strategic moves that we set in place was we want to crawl up market because we know that the mission and the product we brought was valuable to larger organizations. And as we started to do that for the first year and a half, we just had a couple folks, small team, skeleton team that was doing customer discovery, sort of helping us bring knowledge back to our product teams and build the right product for it. But as we started to see that we were starting to scale that business, we knew that we had to bring in an SE team. And again, there's so many different reasons. In organizations where there's high engineering velocity with tons of product complexity, you need that SE partner that can help you. If it's a super technical product or a buyer that requires a technical partner in the sales cycle. And so I think it depends on your business. So moving up market can be a reason. High velocity can be a reason. Being a technical product or technical buyer can be a reason. Lots of reasons to invest in it. I've learned sort of personally when being an AE, but also seeing the value of this role running a go-to-market in hypergrowth.
I'm sure everybody listening who's in the current role can think about a story where they had to get the buy-in of their account executive, right? They maybe worked with somebody who was like, hey, this is all I want you to do. And you have to work to earn that trust. There's so much more typically on the account executive's plate and a lot more stress on that role versus solutions consultant that you sometimes have to work a little bit harder to prove your value. Dini, one of the things that I'm curious on is you talked about one of my favorite subjects, which is the evolution of buyers and sellers. You referred to it a couple of times about technical resource. So I'm curious if you have a perspective on this role evolving as buying and selling has evolved, especially for a company like Lattice, where you're selling to maybe HR or people executives. Like, how technical did the role actually need to be? And how often did it need to be a business driver that spoke true value in executive language?
It was more business driver. I think the tactical definition is this is a technical resource. And that was my understanding when I first got introduced to it as an AE. But now I know it's so much more than that. In this most strategic sense, it is a true co-pilot to the deal cycle. And you see it in your metrics. The buying journey has evolved, right? I think, what is the stat? Like there's 7 folks now involved on the...
I feel like it increases every time the stat comes out.
So true. It's like 7 people. Why are we talking to 1? And the other stat, which is, it always blows my mind, is like a buyer, the cycle, 50 to 70% of your sales cycle is done before you talk to a salesperson. Now folks are coming in more educated. They have their opinions, they have their biases based on what they've read, their experience with a different vendor, a different company. And so folks are coming in with all these opinions and all these sort of biases and needs. It's more complicated than ever. And having 2 folks with the same context and complementary skills co-leading a cycle is so valuable from the buyer's perspective. Like, it makes a ton of sense that I can talk all day about how it helps the business and your revenue growth, but it truly helps your customers. And so if for no other reason, SE is that sort of layer between, the salesperson. As much as you try to put the customer first hat on, you've got a quota, you've got this sort of focus on closing the deal, and the SE can be your co-partner in making sure that you're balancing all the elements between the customer needs, your product reality, and the right way to sell it to this customer. And so the best companies know how to turn it from just a technical resource to a true strategic revenue driver.
I'm going to probably quote that and frame it and put it on my wall right now, because I think that's exactly what we've been talking about PreSales Collective. There's so many things I'd love to unpack there, but the best companies get it. Frank DiCiliano, member of PreSales Collective, he's been in the profession for quite some time. He calls it the sliding scale of technical, because this role has typically been a technical resource and sometimes gets put in a box. It does. Like, your job is a demo, your job is technical validation. And where I have seen solutions consultants fail is they take that approach and they're in front of a C-level buyer and they're speaking the language of the admin of the product and not the C-level buyer. So like that sliding scale of technical is really important. And I'm glad you talked about like that co-sale, because you're right. The seller has a quota. And so I like to call this role a customer-centric problem solver, because their job is to put the customer at the center of what they do and problem solve, ideally with your technology. But, at the end of the day, if they're kind of that voice of the customer, it almost adds a strategic element to deal cycles where I don't want to say you're not partnering with your AE, but the customer then sees you in a totally different light versus they see the account executive.
Couldn't agree more. One of the things that I used to do is like go talk to the SC on a deal. When I hear about a deal that's going to definitely close this quarter, I'll be like, I'm going to go ask the SC what they think. And it's always interesting, their perspective. And I can very quickly assess the relationship between the AE and SC, how strong of a deal it actually is. But I couldn't agree more. I love that sort of sliding scale because it's so true. At different stages of the business, different types of business, you can take multiple roles.
When Frank said that to me, it just really resonated with me. And now I use it all the time. Something that you just mentioned that just hot button for me is you said, if there's a deal that's going to close, you're going to go talk to the SC. This is something that we teach Tom Banton and I in our Leader Elevate program, which is an enablement program for early and first-time pre-sales leaders. And we talk about how you build value with sales. The number of companies that don't have SCs involved in deal review and forecasting is actually really alarming to me. Whether or not the SC has a good perspective on the deal, they tend to be a little bit more risk adverse. And so if you have an account executive who's forecasting the deal and the sales leaders forecasting the deal and the SC is over here like, we haven't done A, B, C, and D, there's an inherent risk to this deal closing. So one of the things that we teach, and I would love your perspective on this, is you gave the example of the solutions consultant having to build value to the AE. We teach that our frontline sales leaders need to understand where deals actually are and go and get buy-in from the frontline sales leader, because the frontline sales leader and all the sales executives have pipeline and forecast numbers. And if they're being fed something that's inaccurate, if you can prove and show value by saying, hey, Dini, I know your AE's forecasting this deal, but my SC is saying A, B, C, and D. I think we should ask some additional questions. And that creates a level of trust. Do you have a perspective on that?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think at my prior company, Drawbridge, SC was a very technical role, and they were driving most of the deal cycle after the initial discovery. So we learned that when we would just rely on the AE running the stages and the forecasts, we were off. And so we designed a sales process where the SC had to approve jumping from one stage to another, where the SC says, yes, I believe that this can close and this close date makes sense. This next stage where we're at this stage in the business or in the deal cycle. And that was game changing for us because we went from, being 40% off on our forecast to 5% off. That's when I became a believer. I was an AE. I grew up in sales. And so I tend to be a little bit more optimistic because you have to be. You take all this rejection. And so you're like, I'm going to believe this is going to close this month. And so the best AEs actually use their SCs to de-risk a deal. And if you can design your sales process and actually give the SE a say in where something is in a deal cycle, I think it can only help your forecasts.
So one of the hot buttons I get on is forecast accuracy. As an SC, I've always been like, why are we not giving bonuses or spiffs to salespeople based off forecast accuracy, right? I've worked with some people who couldn't forecast to save their lives. They were great at closing deals, but their forecast accuracy was all over the place. So it was very unpredictable. How did you incorporate the solutions team into your sales cycle at your previous company? That sounds like an utopia to me and probably most people listening. But unfortunately, for a lot of us, I've worked in sales cycles where I could be telling you that the deal has 0% chance of closing. But if the sales org wanted to do A, B, C, and D, we did A, B, C, and D. So I'm curious your perspective here.
We had to sit in a room. I mean, we were like, okay, we're going to redesign this process based on the sales process, the stages we have in our CRM, based off of what's actually happening in deal cycles versus the thing that you read on a blog or what you think your sales process should look like. And we realized that the SE plays such a key role. And it was a very technical POC that we would run. And there's like signals within the POC that would tell us whether it's going to move to a close and at what pace it would move to a close. And so we knew that that is such a core signal of our ability to close a deal. And because it was fairly technical, we needed to get the SEs involved in that. So we rebuilt the process. It also helped our collaboration between the AE and SE because now they were truly being co-partners, which was another challenge we were seeing then because we'd added on the SE team to AEs that were initially running these deals on their own. So we were like, okay, this is going to be a co-selling type of situation. And so we redesigned, and there's definitely some growing pains, but 6 months into it, we quickly realized it was the right move.
Dini, I have so many questions to ask you for your perspective. So I appreciate that I'm just being a curious solutions consultant here. So one of the things I like to do on this podcast is definitely talk about some cutting edge topics, maybe some things that ruffle feathers a little bit. This is a topic where I feel, as we talked about buying and selling, changing, the role of a CRO, I think, is changing. The modern CRO has their pulse on the organization like never before. And maybe this is just my bias here, but I feel like a lot of people that I've worked with in my career were amazing sellers, but they were so focused on like a very rigid sales process and just forecasting that they almost lost sight of the customer journey. With the prevalence of SaaS, with the prevalence of technology, like, look at the sales and marketing tech stack, it's just exploded. I feel like there's just a different approach to sales that needs to happen. And in my unique position now of running the PreSales Collective, I get to talk to some really incredible people. What I'm hearing in common is that the CRO role has shifted a bit, and it really has their pulse more on customer lifecycle, expansion, renewals, getting deeper in the tech stack. Am I off base here? Do you have an opinion on this?
No, I don't think you're off base. I've always viewed the role of a CRO as a central point of accountability for all things growth and revenue. And how do you do that? One, it's through caring about your team, building the right org structure to support that, and that being supporting your customers. So two sides of the same coin, but ultimately it's about driving revenue, driving growth, driving accountability for both of those pieces. So I couldn't agree more. It is about your customer journey. And the more you can standardize across all those touch points, the better. One of the things that my team at Lattice heard me say, probably weekly, if not more often, was the number one thing that we sell is the fact that we care. And it's not about the feature. It's not about one specific product because, there's always a competitor that may have tons of budget and, doing big brand campaigns or has a feature that you're still building out. But people buy from folks that they feel hear them, listen to them. The number one thing we sell is the fact that we care. And I think that is the job of a CRO, is to walk that walk across every touch point from marketing, sales, success, expansion, you name it.
My favorite word in there was accountability. I love the level of accountability. And I feel like as responsibilities change, like that's what makes or breaks an organization, a leader. And I think it's also the difference between good leaders and great leaders is like accepting that level of accountability and trying to solve it.
100%. It's like accountability and trust go hand in hand. You have to earn the trust of your team. You have to earn the trust of your customers, and you have to keep doing it month after month. It's not a one-time thing. And if you do that as a leader, you lead by example on this front. And, a lot of times when there are problems in the org, I'm like, I've got to look at the mirror because clearly I've got a part to play here.
I love that because we've done some presentations with sales communities or other organizations about the role of trust. And we feel like the solution consultant has a very vital role when it comes to trust building in sales. If unlocked effectively, I think it helps accelerate deal cycles. It helps with efficiency, close rates, everything that you want. But I think it's a lot easier said than done. I think we expect trust to come, but trust is earned and trust is easily broken. You can earn somebody's trust, but as soon as you break it, it's really hard to earn it back. As it relates to trust, Dini, I'm curious for your perspective on how solutions leader earns trust with you. How do you, as the CRO, look at your head of solutions as a co-pilot themselves? And how do they earn and build trust with you as someone running the organization?
I've gotten so lucky on this because I work with one of the best solutions leaders. He's part of PreSales Collective, and he's the one who introduced me to you and James, which I'm very grateful for. So I think I got really lucky on this one. In my mind, the role of a solutions leader, they're a generalist leader. They're a generalist revenue leader. And revenue is the key word there, where ultimately they're thinking of, okay, my team supports these two segments in the business. How do I help accelerate that business? Whether that's through improving our win rate, whether that's through shortening our sales cycle length, whether that's through helping us sell more products on the first deal, so you get a higher share of wallet. And they're doing that through data. They're saying, okay, how many deals are we touching? How many contacts are involved? How do I train and design a sales process that is productive for this customer journey and this team profile that the AEs that you have in place and the SEs that I'm going to build on? They're speaking my language in terms of what's on my mind. They're an extension of my initiatives and my priorities as the revenue leader. They're taking that and saying, okay, we've got to work on our feedback loop between the market and the voice of the customer back to product, because that is an area as you start to scale, you've got to rework your processes. And so I saw this firsthand of this is this like hidden tool that you have in your wallet as a CRO when you find the right leader and really give them the context and autonomy to help you do your best work, which is like, here's the revenue org's priorities. Here's how SEs can drive value. And so that is like step one, but they can go so much beyond that, which is they're able to like really accelerate your priorities and your sort of goals for the business on the ground, because you can't be everywhere.
I really appreciate that answer, because there's plenty of people listening to this podcast who maybe don't have the best relationship with their sales peers or their sales counterparts, or their CRO looks at them a little bit as a sales support role versus a true co-pilot. So that perspective gives people something to hang on to, because what we've talked about a lot at the PreSales Collective is earning that seat at the table, but I like to call it the strategic seat at the executive table, because as buying and selling is changing, as customer lifecycle is evolving, this solution role has a really great opportunity to take on more accountability within an organization, to take some things off your plate as the CRO, to, we haven't even talked about insert themselves in product-led growth motions and expansion and upsell motions. And again, using the word controversial, a little bit of a controversial take is like some people in this profession, whether it's right or wrong, have typically looked at this role in a little bit of a box, and they want to stay in their box. There's not a level of accountability. There's not a level of responsibility. And it's like the job is A, B, C, and D, and you execute on A, B, C, and D. But I think as things are shifting, the cutting edge leaders that I'm talking to understand how to be business drivers. They understand how to accelerate deals, and they understand how to be a co-pilot to the CRO to start driving value for their organization. And I think it's a shift in this profession. And there's going to be plenty of people who don't agree with me in this perspective. But if we think about where the future of sales is going, I think the best pre-sales leaders understand this, and they understand how to help you with your goals as the person who's really hired and fired at the end of the day for revenue success. It's a tough job.
That's right. And, I started off this podcast saying I see teams can be the liaison between your engineering product teams and your go-to-market. But even within the go-to-market, as you scale, there's so much specialization that happens. First, you've got just the AEs that's doing expansion plus new business. Then you bring on an account management team. Now you've got a customer success team. You've got a support team. You've got 4 products. The complexity just continues to increase. And so SE can be that bridge between your pre-sales and your post-sales and new products and implementation teams. And even just within go-to-market, they can be the glue that really pulls it all together. So I agree. Finding the right leader that can help you execute on your vision of what the SE org can and should look like and how it helps the business is, I've seen it firsthand and fully a believer.
I like that you call it the glue within an organization. This is something that we like to talk about PreSales Collective as solutions as the center of influence. We work with so many teams internally and externally, yet a lot of times this role is just comped on revenue or just comped on closed deals, but does so many different things within organizations. So we're excited to see how it evolves. But Dini, I just want to thank you so much for being on this podcast today. It's been great getting to know you through this episode and even before this episode. Heard nothing but amazing things about you and your leadership. So I'm excited you're taking a step back, but definitely looking forward to see where you end up next.
Thank you, James. Wonderful to be on this podcast. Thank you for having me.
Wow, what a wonderful conversation with Dini. I really appreciate talking to sales executives who get solutions. They understand our role and impact within an organization. We talk about strategic seat at the executive table. If you've heard Dini's perspective, she understands how important it is. We didn't actually end up talking about measurements of the role or success and data and value drivers, but we wanted to just have an organic conversation about how this role delivers impact. And at the end of the podcast, you heard Dini talk about some of the measures that she looked at in her previous company to showcase the impact of this role. At Lattice, the revenue grew 33 times in her 4.5 plus years. The employee headcount grew 20 times. I know that she invested in her solutions team, and that team massively increased over the last couple of years because it's a true revenue driver. It is a true co-pilot to the sales teams. It drives value to the engineering and product teams and plays a core role in the future of buying and selling. At the PreSales Collective, you know that we're very passionate about the subject. We truly believe that this role is mission critical to the future of sales. Whatever position that you're in, I'd love to know your thoughts on today's podcast. Is your company treating this role like a true co-pilot, or is it still a sales support agent? Please let me know. And you know what? You might not agree with my perspective here, and that's totally okay. I'd love to hear that as well. All right, PreSales Collective. As always, I hope you log into the Member Hub to get the latest and greatest from the PreSales Collective, and I will see you next week.